So today we'll be working on something that is called a 7-segment display. A 7-segment display is any of the digits that you would see digitally on a computer, right? Now you'll notice that the 7-segment display has a bunch of pins. Now we're going to take a look at the pinout for those bunch of pins, and we're going to use that to help us create a set of digits on an Arduino. Now, we've worked with Arduinos before. Now, you just need to remember that the Arduino is this breadboard which has this pinout that we have here. This set of pins, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way through 13. Now, we'll be using this in conjunction with this thing here, this 7-segment display. Notice there are 7 segments. A, B, C, D, E, F, G is what we call them. And each of those segments require some sort of power out. But what we're going to make sure we do is we make sure that we figure out where the ground is for this. Now, the type of ground that we have will always be in the middle pin on the top side of our 7-segment display. And we'll just take a look at the complete 7-segment display right now to kind of understand how the pin layout is set. In order to get the segment display, we have to type in segment in our Arduino, and you'll notice when you move over this, each one of these pins are given different letters for the different segments that are on the display. And you and I are going to figure out how these things are laid out so that we can finally use the pinout display to control the numbers that would be shown on here. So for example, if I was looking to do the number 1, I would turn on these two, which are related to either A and B, I believe. We'll see as we go through the work. All right? Now, when working with a segment display, right, the 7-segment display is described using this diagram. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now, and you're like, what the heck is going on? Now, here's what's going to happen. When you have your 7-segment display, this is telling us that power needs to go into each one of these specific pins that are going to be represented on this display, right? Now, pin 1, depending on what version of your 7-segment display, will always tend to be down here. So you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down here, and pins 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 going back to the original. Now, what is cool about this is that DP that we have here kind of tells us where our pins are going to be, so, or how we orient this thing. So you'll notice we have pin A, we have display A, B, C, D, E, F, and then G going in the center. Now, in order to get 1, we have to light up A, B, and C. To get 2, we're going to have to go and light up A, B, G, D, E, and D. Right? Now, let me give you a slightly more simple solution here, because these are all showing what the grounds are. We can use either ground 3 or ground 8 as the cathode, the grounding pin to our power source, right? And then we're going to feed power to each one of these using pins 1, 4, 6, 7, 10, and that. Okay? Now, here's how we're going to build this in Arduino. So what we're going to be doing in our diagram pinout for Arduino is we're going to use what we had up here to kind of lay out all the pins for our output for our 7-segment display. So if we light up pin 7 on our thing here, it's going to light up segment A. If I light up segment B, it's going to light up segment B. It's going to set up as either high or low like we used to before, right? So here is what we are going to do as a group. We're going to take one of these, we're going to put it on a breadboard, and then we're going to assign letters for each pin that we use on our Arduino. So once we do that, we will know how to get our pins to print out. So let's go and do that right now on Tinkercad. So when we're building our Tinkercad, what we really need to do now is the first thing that we got to do is we got to get on our Arduino R3. So if you don't have it, you're going to type Arduino, and we're going to select the Arduino R3. We're going to drag it over here. We're going to turn it sideways. Okay? So now that we've turned it sideways, what we can do is we need to get a pin for our a breadboard to hold the pins for our 7-segment display. So I'm going to tend to get this breadboard that's big. I'm going to drag and drop that on here. Now, with our breadboard, we have to have a ground, and I will always make sure that I go and connect the two negative ends for our ground to our Arduino. So let's do that first. So now if we need to have, say, two different grounds for our Arduino, we'll get it. Now the next thing that we got to do is we got to go and download a 7-segment display. So we just type in the word segment, and then that gives us our 7-segment display. So let's go segment, and then we click on the segment display, and we just drag and drop this onto our breadboard. You'll notice that what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I have my 7-segment display set up so that I have five of these big things up here above and 5 below, so that I can set the common ground for this thing. Remember, the cathode is going to come off of the cathode is going to be grounded for this, right? So right now, I'm not going to name this 3. I'm going to call this the display. And we're going to change this to the cathode, right? So now here's our display, right? And all we're going to do for our display is we're going to make sure that we have a resistor for our display. So let's make sure we have a resistor, right? And I'll just drag that up here, and then we have to figure out, based on our drawings from before, remember our drawing is going to have at pin 8 the cathode, so that's the 3rd pin from the left on the top of our pin layout. So let's go and use that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our resistor, which has enough resistance for this. I noticed I set it up to be 1 kilo ohms, right? It's just enough to drop the power that's going into this entire breadboard. Now, here's what we're going to do. We are going to light up pin A with this breadboard. Now, remember what I showed you. I showed you earlier that pin A is second from the right on our display diagram, right? Now, on the video, if you need to figure out which one is display A, make sure that you use this layout. So it's A, B. Don't worry about DP. Don't need that. We go from C and then skip 1, which is another common cathode that we don't need since we're using it to to ground the entire board with a resistance and drop the power. Then we have D and E, G and F up here. So let's do A first, and then we will go to pin B, and we'll light that up. And we'll light that up as we go. Eventually what we're going to do is we're going to take all that information and we're going to light up the display for the different displays for the numbers 1 through 10 using a delay. Alright, so here's what we're going to do. So the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to use pin 2 and I'm going to connect it all the way over here to this pin here, which is pin A. So I'm actually just going to click it here to this rail, and now pin A is lit up. Now in order to control pin A, what we have to do is we have to go to our code, and we're going to set our code from codes to text. And now inside this, here's what we're going to do. First thing we're going to do is we're going to make an integer. So this is what we call a variable. We're going to call this integer A, which is going to represent pin number 2 on our board. Set, so I'm going to put a slash is a comment, and we say set pin number 2 to letter A. So when we use our pin mode and we're setting up the pin, we just have to use the letter A in order to set up this segment of our display to light. So remember, we set our pin layout, our pin mode. If I set it to be A, anytime the computer goes and references A, it's always going to use pin 2. So it's kind of like you're making your own language for the code. So in this case, remember, we have our digital write LED built in. So instead of digital write output high, we're going to say digital write output LED A to high, and then wait 1 second and then set it back to low. And that's all we're going to do, right? So right now what we're going to do is we're going to light up each of the segmented displays so that we know what our overall code is going to be for each of the displays. So let's start that right now. So when we run it, notice it flashed A. It flashed segment A. So in order to get segment B, remember segment B is here. We're going to do the same thing again, except instead of pin 2, we're going to make a pin 3. So we're going to make an integer for pin 3. So let's do that right now. So it's kind of like you're setting up something that represents pin 2, but is known as segment B. So I'm going to go int B is equal to, I'm going to go and use pin 3. You could have used pin 4, whatever, but this variable that we have here will allow us to set our pin mode. So now, remember, with our setup is like a block of a book, right? Now, inside our block here for the setup, notice we have an open bracket and an end bracket. Everything in between those open bracket and end brackets is a specific command that we send to Arduino. So when we send it to our Arduino, right, what it's saying is set the output for pin 2, which is really segment A on our display, to be output. So let's do the same for pin mode B. We're going to set it to also output. Now, notice it's open bracket B, comma, output, end bracket to end the specific command for pin 3. So we're going to go and connect pin 3 all the way over here to B. So now I've connected power to B. So the next thing that we have to do is in our loop, if we run it, we've already set the pin mode output to be B. So what's going to happen is B starts running. Wait. Nothing happened. Now, the reason why that is because we haven't actually told the loop to go and light up line segment B, which is controlled by pin 3. So let us do that by stopping our code, and all we got to do is we have to create a digital write, and we're going to put B. Now, digital write B is saying go and look at pin 3, and if it's open, if it's on, then we're going to set it to high. Okay? So now, if it's not open, we set it to high. So now we have to delay 100 just like before. So all we're doing is copying the code that we had right here and putting it down here. Digital write. Let's go digital write. I spelled digital write wrong. Digital write B low semicolon and delay by 1000 for 1 second. And now we should have this display lighting up after segment A. So segment A, B, C, D, E. And we're going to do that for all of them until we have completed all of the segments in this display. So let's go and check, let's go and see if this works. Now remember, at the end of each command that we're telling the Arduino here, right? The Arduino needs to know that we have finished our command. That's what this little semicolon means. So now when we run this, we end up with line segment A and line segment B in our display opening. Okay? Isn't that awesome? So now what I want you to do is I want you to use this pinout to make sure that you get line segment C, D, and E, F, and G loaded up on our segment display. Alright? That's it. Pause the video and then build the rest of this. That's all. Okay? Alright. Good luck. Get all of the segments working, and then we'll talk about our next task, which is to actually get our code to print out all of the numbers that we have on our display. Okay? Alright. There you go. Good luck, guys.